Perik Beis Halacha Ches in Hilchos Shvisas Osor. The Rambam begins Choyle Sheish B'Sakona. Choyle who is sick and is in danger of his life. Let's go down to the Peirush. Shishor Lechol B'Yom HaKippurim. He asked for food on Yom Kippur. I'll be Sharoivim HaBekiyin. Even though the doctors who are experts say he doesn't need to eat, and he says he wants to. You tell him to eat until he says enough. So this is a Yuma, page 83, because it says Levi Yodea Nafshe. A person knows his own bitterness of heart. At times, a sick person recognizes himself more than the doctors. Therefore, we give him to eat, even though the doctors are of the opinion that he doesn't have to eat. If the Chodesh says, I need tzorech, I don't need. And the Rebbe says, I do need. And he does need, then you force feed him. Rashi explains that you can't rely on it. Maybe because he's ill, he's not mentally competent. The Aruch explains like Rashi somewhat, but it may be because he's so busy thinking about his illness that he doesn't give attention to his food needs. And since when it comes to Sofik Nefashos we are lenient, we have meat. We're talking here about a doctor who is well versed in this situation. Now, when Aruch explains, he's known in that place as a doctor who is professional. As opposed, he says, just as when we go to rabbinical decisions, we have to go according to those people who are in our times, so too, and you can only go according to the doctors in your time. With Shabbos, Rambam writes, you do all that the person who is sick, who is in danger of losing his life on Shabbos, if the doctor is an expert. One doctor says you need to. One doctor says you don't have to. Then we do give him to eat. Some doctors say you don't have to. And some say you do not have to. He does not have to eat. You go according to the majority or or the more expert. This is all in a situation where the sick person himself doesn't say tzorach hani, I need to eat. If the sick person says I need to eat, so we give him to eat because he is the best evaluator of the situation. If the sick person does not say that he needs, and the doctors disagree, and they are all expert, and the number that say he doesn't need is equal to the number that says he needs to eat, we give him to eat. Rambam continues, if the Osor says, I don't know that I need it, the doctors are not sure, there's a disagreement between the doctors, and they're all considered Bikiyim, experts, and the number of those who say he must eat is equal to the number of those who say he does not have to eat. You cause him to eat. The source is in Yuma 83a. Every place that the sick person says I need, you listen to him even if the doctors disagree. If the sick person says I don't need, you go after the majority opinion. That's the halacha. What we see from the Rambam is that if the sick person doesn't say anything, and there's a disagreement between the doctors, some say you do have to and some say you don't have to, there's three possibilities. If they all are experts or they're all not experts, you're going for the majority opinion. If there's no majority, it's equivalent, then you have them eat in any case. If they're half, in other words, if out of four doctors, two say he has to eat and two to say that he doesn't have to eat. But half are experts and half are not experts. Then you go after the experts. So it's not just the thought; it's also the expertise. The Maggid Mishnah writes, we find it when it comes to the question of judging a person as to whether he's liable for the death penalty, we have a similar rule. Now, if a person struck his friend with a stone and he killed him, and we have to know if the stone was weight enough to kill him or not. Maybe he died from fright. So the Sanhedrin disagree in this regard. If they disagree, you go after the majority. And the Rambam cites in Sefer Teros Odom, the beginning of Shar Sakonas, the Ramban writes that if they're not equal, you go after the majority, even if the minority are doctors and they're more expert. But when they're equal, then we go according to the expert's opinion if their numbers are equal. The Nachmani is of the opinion that if there's one specific individual who says he needs it, and other doctors who are not as professional as him say that you don't need it, you go after that individual who's an expert and not according to the others. This is regard to Shul Shabbos, whether one has to transgress Shabbos to save his life. Furthermore, the Ramban writes, if two people say tzorach, even if 100 say you don't need, you go according to the ones that are more lenient. Because as far as witnessing or believing, 2 or 100 is the same thing. And 100 are like 2. And that's some of the Geonim agree with him. And so some of the later commentaries. The Ramach is of that opinion as well. The questions in the Rambam that you go after the majority, Shmuel says in Yuma that you don't go on Bikuch Nefesh according to the majority thoughts, but rather according to those who are more lenient as to whether one transgresses Shabbos to save a life. Only when it comes down to money matters do we go according to the majority. The Beis Yosef judges speaks about this at length, and he cites the Rosh. He also mentions the disagreement between the Rambam and the Ramban, and he adds that Rashi and the Shiltas have the opinion like the Rambam. You go after the majority of logic, of thoughts of people. But the Rosh concludes that you don't go according to the majority, since in the Gemara it says specifically that you don't go after the majority of people. And the Rosh therefore says that since there's a disagreement among the rabbis, therefore when it comes to Shabbos we go to the more lenient view. Beis Yosef questions on the Ran, who explains the Rambam that you don't go after the majority. We see in the Rambam, here in the Rambam, that you do go according to the majority. The Halacha, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, if two say he needs to eat, even if 100 say he does not have to eat, and even if the sick person says he doesn't need, you force him to eat, since two say he has to eat, and this is not like the Rambam. The Ramban, Nachmanides, brings the thought of the logic of Rabbi Yochanan and the Yerushalmi. If the sick person says, I can fast, and the doctor says, I don't know, and I'm not sure if he can fast, then it becomes a suffering nefoshes, and you're makel that he can fast. And he pushes it off. Machon Nesher that Yerushalmi is brought down. This Yerushalmi is brought down in many places that we act in accordance with it, then it becomes suffering nefoshes. Furthermore, the Maggid Mishnah writes in the name of the Rambam, Nachmanides, that it would seem only if the cholah says that he can fast and the doctor says he's not sure, maybe he can fast or not, that's when you give him to eat. But if the Rebbe says he can fast, and the sick person says, I don't know, then you listen to the doctor, and he has to fast. The Rebbe says, I do not know, is not reckoned with. Because how should he know? Most sick people don't know how much they need. Therefore, we listen to the doctor. He says, I know they can fast, and he has to fast. The Magen Mishnah cites the words of the later commentaries, later after his time, that you give him to eat less than the normal amount that a person. You don't tell him he can sit down and eat a meal, but you give him to eat, as we learned earlier, less than the amount of a large date, Shvisas, I guess, because he shouldn't transgress chorus. Only if he has to eat, the doctor says he has to eat a normal meal, otherwise it won't help him. And so the Torah writes as well. A woman who is pregnant or a sick person, that if you can give them a little bit to eat at a time, so they should not have to eat the amount of a date, of a large date, within the period of time of one would eat 3 eggs, which is approximately 9 minutes. That is what is done. The Shvisas cites, we find this in Nagos Maimonides. Since we're not sure in this type of a situation, it's better to give him a little bit to eat, so it shouldn't be the size of Shvisas, this large date, within the period of time of Achilles Pras, which is 9 minutes. The Rambam doesn't mention a possibility to give him less than the amount. However, he does mention in Hilchos Yom that there is such a concept, and one should be careful that if he cannot exist from eating that in that fashion, you give him to eat normally, as much as he needs. The Griz questions the Rambam from his first words, and what he says later. He says, a sick person, that yesh bo sakona, that it would seem to be that we know he is in danger of his life, that he wants to eat on Yom Kippur. It would seem that if somebody says he has to eat, we believe him. It's only we know that he's a sakona. But if it's not known that he's a matzav sakona, only the Chayil says, I am, that if you won't give me to eat, I'll pass away. You do not give him to eat. Now, the question is, if we rely on the sick person because the person recognizes his needs, that you don't need to know that he's in a sakona. And furthermore, the Mishnah takes the general rule of giving him to eat according to his own calculation, together with the din that you give him to eat according to the doctors. That's for sure. That if the doctors say that he's a person who's about to die, you have to give him to eat. You give him to eat, even if we are not sure before then that he's in such a situation. And therefore, why, when we give him to eat on his own recommendation, we have to know that he has a sakona? Where do you learn this distinction? And he cites the Agos Maimonides, Machlokes Rashi Yameinu Tam. What does it mean that the Chayil says he has to eat? Rashi is that the Chayil says, if I won't eat, I'll become possibly mortally fatal. So Yameinu Tam says, doctors are sick people, prophets or experts to know if they won't eat, they'll put themselves in danger. Therefore, Yameinu Tam says, the Chayil says, and he can't take it, and you tell him it's Yom Kippur, there, and it doesn't stop him, but there you say, Leiv Yudei Mos Nafshe, you give him to eat. Because if you tell him it's Yom Kippur, he still wants to eat, he must be in a desperate straits. The Griz brings the Rambam, he explains the Rambam according to what he writes in Hilchos Shabbos. The sick person who is in danger, do everything he needs on Shabbos. What's the rule? Shabbos by a sick person is like weekdays for everything else. By Mishnah in Halacha Yudalet, is careful in his language, it is like a weekday for everything. That the choila needs it. The sick person has a sakona, Shabbos is pushed away from him, even if keeping that from him is not a sakona. The Griz says, on Yom Kippur the same thing applies. If we know that its choila is in danger, then you don't have to judge whether he's in danger or not. Whatever you need to do, you have to do. And that's part of the needs of a sick person. And Yom Kippur is pushed away. Just as we designate for him Shabbos for everything that he needs according to the Rambam. Therefore, the Rambam is of the opinion that deciding if he's considered a sick person who's in danger or not, here the choila has no, we don't qualify, do not qualify it according to the sick person. We have to know this through doctors. But once we know that he is in danger, then the sick person is allowed to say, I need to eat it, because there a person recognizes his needs. Shvisas in Hilchos Shabbos. Shvisas in Hilchos Shabbos in the Radvaz and Shuvas says, brings the opinion of those who state that you're not Machal Shabbos for a choila that has a sakona only if by keeping food from him he'll go into danger. According to that, also in Yom Kippur, what the Gemara says that you give him according to his own expression of need, that's when the sick person says if you will not give him, he will be in sakona, will be in danger. And we rely on this, on his words. According to this opinion, you don't need to know beforehand that he has a sakona. Every person who's sick, it says, I am in danger in my life. If I won't eat, you give him to eat. That's not like the Rambam, who says you have to know beforehand that he is in sakona. The Griz adds that his father, Chaim Brisk, would tell everyone, every sick person that had a sakona, who was in danger, like if he had an internal injury, he should give him to eat on Yom Kippur everything he needs, and not according to the measurements over 9 minutes. Reason why? Since he is in danger, the Yom Kippur is pushed away. Whatever will help to heal him, and eating a full measure is definitely better for this sick person because his mind is at ease. Therefore, it's in the category of Pikuach Nefesh, which pushes off Yom Kippur, like the Rambam says. That says that you give him less than the Koseves, less than the full date, and within and you space it out in between 9 minutes. He's talking about a sick person. He's not at a danger point. The doctor says if he will not eat, then it will increase his sickness and he will become to a danger point. There you have to give him according to measurements. But a sick person who has a sakona, whatever is best for him, that's what you have to do. You have to strengthen his physical being and to minimize the danger. And that's Pikuach Nefesh, which pushes off Yom Kippur. And we find this in Sefer HaChinuch, that after they bring the measures of food and drink on Yom Kippur, he writes, therefore, somebody who's sick, even though he's not in a sakona, in danger, totally, but if he'll weaken himself, he will be in danger, and therefore, you should give him to drink a little bit at a time. That means less than the measure of a shiur of a Koseves. The Milchas Chinuch questions from the Chinuch would seem that even when there's no danger, you give him to eat less than the measure. And we don't find elsewhere they should be in the Torah when there's no danger that you do so. The Griz explains the Chinuch is, as Reb Chaim Brisk said, it's talking about if he won't eat it, it will cause him to come into danger. But if he's already in danger, then you give him regular to eat. So the whole concept of giving someone to eat a measure less than the measure of a Koseves and to space it out over 9 minutes is only when he's not in danger. But if he's in danger, then you have to do everything possible to make sure that he does not go into danger.